Over the past couple of years, I have made several sculptures depicting hands and also a few feet. My sculptural work is focused on the figure, but lately I have wanted to explore the expressive qualities of the hand as a standalone object, imbued with its own meaning independent of the body. Hands Held Up in Surrender was begun in the months following two traumatic events. These were the mass shootings of students at Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School in Parkland, Florida in February 2018, and the death of Antoine Rose at the hands of a Pittsburgh police officer in East Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania in June 2018. It was in response to these two tragedies and against the background of many other incidents of gun violence of the past several years that I made this sculpture. I begin most of my work in clay. I usually do not make anything more than small sketches, but more often I prefer to think about a project for a while before I start modeling it full size. I wanted to depict a young person of unspecified gender or race. I did not have a young person to model their hands for me. Images on the internet are very useful to me since the availability of models is very limited for me. I looked at my own hands to understand anatomy, as well as images of younger hands I found on the internet. I also take inspiration from other works of art that I see, art in public places and in museums. Since my work is rarely very big, it is easy to change it as I solidify the sculptural idea. I decided to make the hands twice the life size of a teenager's hands to give them more presence. It was important to emphasize features that distinguish a teenager's hands, such as the slenderness of the fingers and wrists and the comparative absence of wrinkles and creases, as well as a general gracefulness that younger humans have. The only real change that I made with this sculpture is that once I had gotten the work to a fairly finished state, I decided I needed to show more of the arms to give the work more presence. Once I had achieved a degree of modeling and surface quality I was satisfied with, I made a waist mold of the clay models. A waist mold is made of plaster of Paris in one or more pieces. I made two-part molds. Once the plaster had hardened, I opened the molds and removed the clay in pieces, destroying my original clay model. I then only had a negative of the model. I put the two halves of the molds together and filled them with gypsum cement, a material that looks like plaster of Paris but is much harder and more durable. Once this had hardened, I chipped the plaster mold from the cast with a small chisel. This is why this type of mold is called a waste mold. It is destroyed in the process of producing a cast. Once the cast was freed from the waste mold, I proceeded to finish and refine the surface further. For greater stability, I attached circular pieces of copper plate to the bottoms and weighted the bottoms to make them more stable. I decided to paint the sculpture a medium gray instead of making a choice regarding skin color for a more general meaning. I delivered this work to the Hoyt Institute in Newcastle, Pennsylvania in late March, at the very beginning of the COVID-19 pandemic. At the time, there was still an opening plan for the exhibition. The galleries are currently closed, but hopefully this brief explanation of my creative process will give you more of a connection with the soul of the work as you view it from your safe distances. We are all in a state verging on surrender at the moment, but it is my hope that everyone can work together to resist the threat that the pandemic presents us with, and think of how we can move forward as a society that can resolve its problems non-violently so that our youngest members can grow up in a better world.